Nella scuola del bosco le giornate trascorrono tutte all'aria aperta, non ci sono mura, non ci sono edifici, ci sono alberi e non solo alberi.
In the school in the woods, there are no walls, there are plants, many animals, the wind, the sky, roots, the earth, and a great deal more. There are no desks, there are no chairs, but there's a very large space that's open at the sky above us, and we spend the whole day in the woods. There are no structured toys or games, no predestined games. The kids play with what they find, a great deal of natural materials, and they spend their days in a cheerful manner. They have a great time in the woods. And also the environment can stimulate children, the different types of environments. If we're in a hill, in the hills, there's going to be a lot of movement, running and rolling down the hills. If we're near a brook, the kids will want to dig dams or carry materials. If they're clay, they can play with clay, produce small objects, and if there are many sticks, the kids will start playing with the sticks, with pieces of branches, and they will bring into their games nature directly into their hands. If you consider rich, complex context for children is very important. Oftentimes we think about how all the teaching methodologies that we're familiar with, that us teachers and educators are familiar with, find no space oftentimes in a classical classroom. And that's why it's important to bring education into other environments, to introduce children to nature, and also to create concrete spaces for concrete experience so that kids can really have more of a hands-on learning. This isn't obvious. In order to achieve it, you really need to learn to work on teacher skills in order to stimulate the children's interest and to start from their questions to plan, to see to it that educational experiences can be guaranteed. We don't think that nature educates by itself. It's important for educators and teachers to learn how to accompany children in these rich and complex contexts in which learning, time of learning expands. So you need to make room for reflection. Oftentimes with nature, a slow time is associated. We have come to realize that it isn't necessarily so. It's a right time which respects the learning time of children of different ages. We have gone into the woods with small children aged 3 or 4, but even 5 or 6, and even with kids from primary schools. Of course, the approach changes. The school goes out and conquers new territories, placing the child at the center. So basically what is proposed is a contextualized education approach. As far as primary school is concerned, we can't lose sight of the curriculum, and it has to be, of course, based on skills. But starting from the experiences of the child means placing skills at the very center of the experience. The language of nature cuts across disciplines. If we talk about nursery schools, the various areas of learning are very much intertwined, and so it's up to us educators to enrich our language and learn how to sustain the interest and motivation of children where they arise in the woods, but also in nursery school gardens, which have been introduced. And of course here the role of the adult changes. The child is given greater responsibility, but also the adults tell us that they're more comfortable in the woods because because they find themselves in a situation in which they don't know everything, and they're there to rediscover a world that they thought they were familiar with, but don't know it as much as they thought they did. So what really matters here is the will, the desire to discover together with children what nature has to offer. My work involves accompanying children and adults in processes for learning about nature. In the woods, the environmental educator spends a great deal of time with both the teachers and the children. You spend the whole day together from morning to afternoon, and then you get together the following morning. We spend a lot of time together. The mistakes to avoid involve not allowing children to discover things on their own rather than spoon feeding them. What's not easy is managing the empty spaces, but one mustn't be in a rush to fill those empty spaces. Be patient enough to wait and to enter into communication with the child, and then maybe tell something without forcing things, because in the woods, as we've said, children play freely. They are attracted, for example, by a snail that is crossing our path. Of course, I can step in on tiptoes. I'm placing always my intervention in parentheses, because it's not a matter of telling what a snail is and what it does, but rather teaching children to learn by themselves the relations that this attractive and interesting animal has with the rest of the woods. And it wasn't just children who changed in the woods, but also teachers who have managed to change the way they look at children, and they look at the way in which children learn. When they've gone back into schools, teachers have felt the need to rethink the school context, the classroom, and the school gardens in their context, to diversify the proposals for the children. Some have told us that they really miss the woods, and this helps us to understand that teachers have really discovered experiences that are completely new in terms of teaching and learning. It's an interest that emerges from children, but that's not so obvious for those who work in education like myself and all other teachers and educators who day after day have to teach children to really experience significant learning processes. So bringing the woods of pedagogy into schools, into children's services becomes an urgent need, not just to give nature back to children, but good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for
di partire con il video.
Thank you for allowing us to begin with the video that allowed us to meet each other. Perhaps this question has elicited questions, and we hope that we can progress together with these questions and curiosities so that we can proceed with some steps together. Nature and nature often seem to be in contrast, but it isn't so for us. Maurizio's words have taken us here. He says that for us, the digital is like an enchanted wood in which what is impossible becomes possible. Placing a child in nature is indispensable today in order to allow him or her to really enjoy real spaces before someone forces him or her to settle only for virtual spaces. Thank you, Maurizio, for this sentence. And we thank Maurizio also because he has invited us here in a context filled with passionate teachers who are not frightened about reconsidering the approach of education in schools today. Today, we need to try to see together how we can bring nature back into primary and secondary schools. Now, I have not introduced myself. You've probably understood that I am Michela Schenetti. I'm a researcher from the Bologna University. I'm passionate about active or teaching methodology, so active that they cannot simply take place within a school. Within a classroom setting or in a classroom setting. Now, surely I share with all flipped teachers the constructivist approach, which allows us to think of knowledge in terms of something that is constructed, situated, distributed, interpersonal. A knowledge that refers to a dynamic, quality-based, cooperative-based, and metacognitive context. Those of us who work in schools, like us, necessarily think about the learning environments, the importance of building environments for learning in an intentional manner, which may really steer the learning processes that we would like children to benefit from. Learning environments which somehow bring to the fore individual as well as collective reflections and that lead to the development of a process of knowledge on the affective level, emotional level, cognitive level, but also interpersonal and social. So they necessarily need to be placed also in a metacognitive and intersubjective context. Today, we are here to tell you that it is necessary also to step out of this environment in order to rethink and reconsider learning environments in which we have a hard time thinking of them or envisioning them. School gardens, for example, need to be rethought in teaching terms, but the outside is also represented by public spaces, green spaces, the commons, the territory, which can surely be revisited in an interdisciplinary manner, in a continuative manner, because we imagine that you're already doing this, so that you can really regarded as a rich, complex, and privileged learning environment. Good morning, everyone. My name is Irene. I, too, am passionate about nature, have always been ever since I was a child, and I'm sure many of you are like me. I work as an environmental educator. I have a college degree in farming sciences, and I work at the Laviti Center, which for 30 years has been working in the area of environmental education. It's worked especially in Bologna, and it promotes a culture that is more attentive towards biodiversity, naturalistic, as well as historical and landscape-related values of the territory. Since 2013, Michela and I have been working in Bologna on a trading project for nurseries and children's schools for open air or outdoors education. We work on the redesigning of school gardens in order to improve them, especially from a naturalistic or landscape point of view. In a difficult era such as the one in which we're living, perhaps we should stop and ask ourselves questions like, what do we really need in order to feel okay? A possible answer would be we need nature. We need to interact with nature. We need to live nature in its different seasons. We need to enter into contact with the natural elements, with the changing of seasons, with the passing of times. Many scholars tell us that nature is good for both the adults and children, and it has positive effects both on the mind and on the body. Nature is no doubt a very powerful context to activate a positive effect, well-being, inner calm, to reconnect with nature. And now there is a theory, Kaplan's theory, according to which being submerged in a natural environment facilitates focus, attention. The experience in nature improves motor skills, coordination of hands and eyes, and it activates the senses. This is really important, especially in the early stages of life in children, because unless the senses are used, they can't really be developed, or develop rather, but sensory competence and skills are important for children, but for adolescents and adults alike to enter into contact with themselves and with the world. We develop, we use the eyes a lot. We look, we watch, we observe. But an article recently has encouraged us to focus on touch. It's the first sense that we use when we come into the world. The skin is not just a cover, but an organ, a sensory organ. Hence, nature shouldn't just be looked at, observed, but experienced with the whole of our body. For instance, we can feel the chilly air on our skin, enjoy, savor the taste, the flavor of a fruit that we've just picked off a tree. There's so many things that we can do with our senses. We have to experience nature throughout the seasons, not just in springtime when it explodes, or in the fall when there's this beautiful foliage that we can enjoy, but also and especially in the moments in which it seems as if nature is sleeping, but it's actually moving. Now, in particular for children, the wind, the snow, the rain are never a problem, but always an opportunity for growth. Now, in addition to all of the benefits that we've listed, we should add that the reflection on the nature of the value of nature in education sinks its roots way back, almost 100 years. We'd like to recall, and here I'd like to go back to what Maurizio was saying, that 100 years ago in Italy, the outdoor schools were introduced for healing purposes, surely, but also for educational purposes alike. Now, in the wake of the process that we showed in the video previously, and that is further explored in the book Le Scuole nel Bosco, Schools in the Woods, and in the wake of the experiences of teachers that took part in these processes, we've brought this experience forward to primary schools, and hopefully we'll be able to extend it to secondary and high schools. So, in September of 2006, a national network of outdoor schools was opened that we are supporting on the basis of research based on case studies. The schools involved in this network are intentionally few because we have some 15 schools throughout the country, but the requests continue to grow. We're getting more and more requests. Each one has signed a protocol. Each school participates in a 3-year training programs which is contextualized so as to tap into the experiences of the school and to be connected with the various different territorial plans. But it's also shared. It's important to have a general approach. Now, there isn't that much time, of course, to to go into the details now, but what we do want to underscore is the fact that in schools, in outdoor schools, well, these outdoor schools are actually outside and inside, in the sense that in the outdoor schools, the external space is as important as the indoor space. And this is already a great revolution, because we're used to spending most of our teaching hours indoors, right? Instead, these schools in the open, privileged, direct experience and have no boundaries. So the invitation is to go out and to open doors and go out. But when we speak about schools in the open, we speak about schools that have to do with, of course, the curriculum based on skills that you talk about, of course, and that you work to promote so much. They have to do with authentic homework, with active teaching methodologies, and with training assessments. And to express some points, some significant points of the process that we are experiencing, we have chosen some key words. These are the first four: relations, interconnection, knowledge, a sense of belonging. Well, let's start with the relations, or relationship and interconnection. Nature is a complex, dynamic, and uncertain context. Everything is interconnected. Now, when you're out in the open in nature, kids discover new things, and they connect them, and they understand that they can come into contact with the cycles of nature, birth, death. They're dazzled by the transformations that they observe. There are examples, many, of interconnection in nature, are very many. As kids get to know nature, they develop a strong affect for the surrounding environment. Nature is fundamental to develop a sense of belonging and knowledge. I have to proceed very quickly at this point. Let me just mention that children are very curious, and nature often captivates their sense of awe, of wonder, and therefore curiosity arises, and this triggers a series of discoveries that make kids and young adults very joyful. If we are deprived of the joy that comes from discovering, we learn not to go beyond and not to push beyond what we're being taught. Other key words are interdisciplinarity, interdisciplinary nature. Nature is interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, and languages grow in nature, and they allow for different possibilities. In nature, it's important to educate kids to adventure, to beauty, promoting the projection of young people into future times that are not structured and predetermined or decided by adults in one way or another. But today we also want to very quickly talk about us adults. I work at a research center based in Bologna, which involves many departments of the national territory, many Rome. And in the audience, I saw Giorgio Squini, a colleague of mine. We try to do training with educators, with teachers. In the video, we've said that the school in the woods and in the outdoors tell us something very important, and that is that teachers who start to live and work in different environments change their mindset, change their approach, their teaching method because of this experience. Here we feel very close to you because probably it's what happened to you when you flipped your teaching approach. Outdoors, the teachers feel as inexperienced as the child, even more so sometimes. And this places the teacher in an attitude of curiosity, of listening, of those who do not anticipate discoveries, who do not answer questions, if not with other questions. Richard Louv, who is the founder of a North American movement that goes by the name of Children Nature, tells us that school isn't supposed supposed to be a polite form of incarceration, but a portal to the wider world. And just as Maurizio reminded us, the virtual instrument cannot replace the real experience. For the first time in the history of man, our children run the risk of not being able to experience, to engage in truly authentic experiences such as running in a wild, in a field, or stopping and being stopping in order to discover nature. So the great challenge for us adults is perhaps that of allowing nature to characterize our schools, our way of educating. The idea of nature that we propose is not is genuine. Nature can be complicated, and not all children appreciate it, especially younger children who haven't had much contact with nature in their early years. So oftentimes you will be dealing with children who need to reconnect with nature, just as we adults need to do. And this is where the kids learn opportunities or discover opportunities for knowledge. It is also necessary for us to offer children experiences which are authentic and complex, without running the risk of simplifying, trivializing knowledge and skills. Like you, I'm a teacher, and my collaboration with Irene, an environmental educator, was based on a peer-to-peer experience. So it's in coming into contact with her, I rediscovered, I came into contact with a greater sense of creativity. Anyway, let's start from where we began. Let's finish with where we began. Innovation, which is what characterizes us, flipped classrooms, outdoor education. These are new, innovative methodologies, or so they're defined, but in actual fact, maybe they are not. Let's wonder, what does innovation mean to us? It doesn't mean seeing to it that kids learn a little bit about a lot of things. No, we need to really understand and decide what contexts we should present, how to present them, so as to allow our kids to establish a direct relationship with those contents, with those experiences. We don't know what will prepare for our kids for the future, so perhaps we should allow them to live, to understand and interpret the world. We've talked about wilderness, we've talked about the cyclical nature, of circularity, of changing glances, of gardens that are transformed, that are on the move, as Gilles Clement would say, nature as it moves. We are confronted with many, many dynamic and curious teachers, and this encourages us to engage in a reflection. Are we ready for a flipped outdoor school? Thank you.
Aspettate, non ve ne andate perché questa è un momento.
Please, let's wait a moment. This is something very important. It's a very important moment. We are all enthusiastic about what you just told us. This is a wonderful experience. It was wonderful to listen to what you said. And I believe that from now on, classrooms in the woods and flipped classrooms are going to go hand in hand.